I know, right? I mean, I have to say, Karen Dupiche, our wonderful, wonderful makeup artist, when the earthquake was happening, she put her coat on and she was like, Jesus is coming.
I'm out.
I'm out. I'm leaving. We've got a solar eclipse. We've got the earthquake. She ran down the hallway.
The rapture is here.
The rapture's here. And then also I learned that the cicadas are coming.
Cicadas.
Cicadas.
Although I love
for the first time in like 100 years. For the first time in many, many years.
No, every 17 years this happens.
Well, that's not what I read, but maybe, you know, maybe you know better. All those things together would maybe lead one to believe that, you know, either climate change exists or something is really going on.
Returning.
Earthquakes are not at the mercy of climate change. It's underground.
No.
It can't.
It happens, and the eclipse, they've known about the eclipse coming because eclipses happen, and they actually can say when these...
It finally happened. Sunny Hostin just had a full-on meltdown, live, raw, and completely unfiltered. And no, Mercury isn't in retrograde, but her credibility sure is. Greg Gutfeld didn't just call her out. He dragged every last ounce of hypocrisy into the sunlight so blinding even the studio lights looked dim. The moment he opened his mouth, everything around Sunny seemed to fall apart. Even her teleprompter couldn't keep up. What started as a routine episode of The View exploded into chaos the moment Gutfeld showed up. It wasn't just a clash of opinions, it was a total annihilation of Sunny's carefully crafted persona. One comment, and boom, the air changed. If you've ever seen someone unravel faster than a cheap wig in a hurricane, you know the energy. This wasn't a disagreement, it was a demolition. Tissues were flying, cameras were shaking, and jaws on the floor. Gutfeld looked like he walked in knowing exactly what was about to go down.
Hostin's obsession with race gets thrown back in her face. Today's video comes to us from sunny Hostin. Sounds like a town. We're in sunny Hostin. She was on PBS's Finding Your Roots, a show dedicated to researching celebrity ancestry. For context, Sunny is a staunch supporter of reparations and has made a fortune spewing nonsense about white privilege and racial justice. Well, turns out she's not as oppressed as she claims she is. She's actually the descendant of slave owners from Europe. Here's how she took it.
And Sunny, she had no idea what hit her. One jab, one fact check, one slice of cold, hard truth. And she was done. It all began so casually. The usual View noise, back-patting, self-praise, and a round of exaggerated nods. They acted like they were saving democracy, one misinformed comment at a time. But this time, someone wasn't playing along. Greg Gutfeld entered the set like a wrecking ball made of receipts, and Sunny Hostin never stood a chance. It was a disaster, televised and in HD. Sunny tried to keep her cool. She smiled, she nodded, but you could see it in her eyes. Panic. Real, undeniable panic. Like someone realizing the house of cards is about to collapse. Then it happened. Greg dropped the bombshell. Sunny, he asked, how are you the voice of justice while avoiding basic accountability? The audience gasped, and Sunny froze. She stammered, blinked, and tried to deflect, but Gutfeld wasn't done. He laid out her contradictions like a prosecutor in court, and Sunny, she looked like she wanted to disappear behind the coffee table. He reminded everyone how Sunny lectures America about injustice, while bragging about how she hasn't stepped foot in a grocery store in years. I use Instacart, she declared. I tip big, she added, as if that made her relatable. She said it so proudly, like tipping generously erased the glaring divide between her lifestyle and the average Americans. Fire logs, bounty towels. Her tone practically screamed, I'm out of touch. It was the kind of moment you almost feel sorry for. Almost. Because Sunny didn't just contradict herself, she exposed the exact elitism she pretends to fight against.
I think that women, white women in particular, want to protect this patriarchy here because it's to their benefit. Yeah. They want to make sure that their husbands do well. They want to make sure that their sons do well. They want to make sure that their children do well. And they want to make sure that they do well. Most of the women in some of these studies are married white women, and they do fall in line with what their husbands are doing.
People have to wonder, where does Sunny Hostin get her opinions? Yeah. Like you said, it's obviously from her husband. She has to tell her what to say in The View, because without it, she's got nothing up there. She's not very bright. So, but the problem with her is that she went full racist.
And Gutfeld made sure no one missed it. Then, to make matters worse, they cut to a clip of Sunny on Finding Your Roots, and what she discovered left her stunned. "I didn't know. I always thought I was half Puerto Rican," she mumbled, her voice cracking. But then, the truth dropped like a thunderclap. She's descended from European slave owners. Her reaction? Confused? Awkward? Spinning? "It's a fact of life," she said. "That would fix everything." Greg couldn't believe it, and neither could anyone watching. This woman who built her brand on accusing others now had the mirror turned back on her. And she couldn't handle it. Her usual confidence vanished. Gone was the smug tone, the raised eyebrows, the interrupting finger waves. She looked like a student who forgot her homework and got caught copying answers. Live on national TV. And the audience? Silent. No cheers, no applause, just the sound of crumbling credibility echoing off the studio walls. Greg didn't yell. He didn't insult. He just used her own words. And that was worse than any insult. Sunny tried to bounce back. She launched into a teary-eyed explanation about how she was still learning, still growing, still processing. But no one was buying it. You could practically hear viewers across the country shouting, "Too late." Greg didn't let up. Not for a second. Like a spotlight in the dark, he kept exposing every inconsistency Sunny had ever tried to hide. And with every sentence, she sank deeper into discomfort. He pointed out how Sunny demands civil conversations, but just last month, she called half the country dangerous extremists. Civil for who? Greg asked, his eyebrow raised like a man who already knew the answer. She shifted in her seat, trying to change the topic. But it was too late. The audience wasn't laughing anymore. They were watching something rare. Accountability on The View. And then came the line that sealed it all. "Sunny, your outrage has a light switch. On when a conservative breathes, off when your own side steps on the Constitution."
Ah, you look tantalizing. You know, I make fun of The View a lot, but that's only because they keep talking. Because COVID also taught Sunny Hostin how to get her groceries delivered.
3 years, that's when I discovered Instacart, and I give them a big tip because they don't always pay their people well, and it's so that's been an issue, I think, for the company. But man, you can get toiletries, you can get fire logs.
Fire logs? She had to tell the audience that she tips big because even she knows she sounds insane.
The crowd gasped again. It was brutal. Sunny blinked fast, her lips trembling, and suddenly her usual fire was gone. In its place was silence, and not the powerful kind. The scared kind. The kind that says, "I've been caught." Greg wasn't mocking her. He was dissecting her narrative. He brought up her comments on immigration, where she once condemned family separations, but when her favorite politicians did it, she called it complex policy. "You can't have it both ways," he declared, his voice rising. Not in anger, but in undeniable truth. You either stand for something, or you're just standing in front of a camera. Sunny's eyes darted toward the camera, toward the producers, anywhere but Greg's face. It was like she wanted to vanish into the floor, or at least into a better script. That's when she tried the oldest trick in the book, playing the victim. Her voice softened, her eyes glistened, and suddenly the conversation turned into an emotional therapy session. She spun Greg's criticism into a full-on attack on all women and all minorities, as if exposing her own words was somehow hate speech. The studio lights felt hotter, the tension unbearable. She said, "I think that white women in particular want to protect the patriarchy." And you could feel the temperature drop. The crowd didn't know whether to clap or cringe. Even the other hosts seemed uncomfortable, except for Whoopi, who nodded like she just heard the word patriarchy for the first time in years and wanted to seem supportive. Greg, still calm as ever, just smiled. "So let me get this straight," he said. "If someone disagrees with you, they're sexist, racist, or both?" The silence was deafening. Sunny didn't answer, because she couldn't. She had painted herself into a corner with a brush, made of double standards, and dipped in hypocrisy.
I'm a little bit in shock. I just always thought of myself as Puerto Rican, half Puerto Rican. I didn't think I was, my family was originally from Spain and slaveholders.
Yeah. So how are you feeling, my friend?
I think it's actually pretty interesting that my husband and I have shared roots.
Greg wasn't being cruel. He was being precise. He brought the receipts, the contradictions, the very things Sonny never expected someone would say out loud, especially not on The View. It wasn't just one moment. It was years of pent-up contradictions coming home to roost. She wanted to stand on moral high ground, but the ground cracked beneath her heels. Even social media erupted. Clips spread like wildfire. Memes popped up in seconds. One showed Sonny with the caption, "Strong opinions, weak spine." Another read, "When reality hits harder than your script." Greg's segment went viral overnight, not because it was loud, but because it was true. It was truth delivered with style, sarcasm, and The View fears most, evidence. Meanwhile, Sonny's reaction became a cautionary tale, not just about hypocrisy, but about what happens when someone lives too long inside their own echo chamber. Behind the scenes, producers were scrambling. Reports say they were concerned about her emotional health, as if being corrected on television was a personal tragedy. But this wasn't bullying. It wasn't cruelty. It was exposure. Pure, clear, undeniable exposure of a public figure who thought no one would ever challenge her carefully crafted mask. The meltdown wasn't over. Not even close. After Greg finished dismantling her talking points one by one, Sonny tried again to salvage the moment. But her voice shook and her message crumbled. She tried to pivot, rambling about growth and healing, as if she were hosting a TED Talk instead of backpedaling on live TV. But the damage was done, and the viewers knew it. Greg didn't even need to say anything else. His silence said everything. He sat back, arms crossed, while Sonny twisted herself into knots, trying to explain her contradictions without admitting a single one. The other hosts tried to throw her a lifeline, nodding aggressively, clapping randomly, but it just made things worse. The desperation was written all over their faces. Even Whoopi chimed in with a half-hearted defense.
Cicadas.
Although I love for the first time in like
No.
100 years,
No.
for the first time in many, many years.
No,
And so-
every 17 years this happens.
Well, that's not what I read, but maybe, maybe you know better. All those things together would maybe lead one to believe that, either climate change exists
That's one
or
of the
something
points.
is really going on.
Returning. Earthquakes are not at the mercy of climate change. It's underground. It can't.
It happens, and the eclipse, they've known about the eclipse coming because eclipses happen, and they actually can say when these...
Yes, really. That was her actual response. The audience didn't even know how to react. Behind the scenes, insiders whispered that Sonny was deeply shaken, not by Greg, but by the realization that the internet was now flooded with clips of her being exposed on every level. And oh, the internet did not hold back. One meme showed her with the caption, "When you demand justice, but forget your own record." Another simply said, "Oops." The hashtag started trending. Jar Sonny exposed, Shashtra hypocrisy on The View, and Shash Greg was right. It wasn't just conservatives cheering. Even centrists were shaking their heads in disbelief. This wasn't just a bad day for Sonny. It was a breaking point. The kind that doesn't get fixed with a few teary-eyed statements or carefully scripted damage control. And what made it worse? Sonny didn't apologize. She didn't reflect. She doubled down, claiming the entire confrontation was proof of systemic disrespect for women of color. Greg didn't even need to respond. The contradictions were already doing the work for him. Sonny had turned a political debate into a personal meltdown, and everyone saw it happen in real time. It was like watching a tower collapse in slow motion, brick by brick, by statement. In the end, all that remained was chaos, silence, and a shattered ego. The studio was stunned. As the screen faded to black, producers were in full panic mode. Nothing could fix this mess. The next morning, The View tried to rewrite the moment as a brave conversation. But no one believed it. Social media had the footage, the facts, and the fury. The damage was already done. Greg Gutfeld didn't say another word, but his smirk said everything. He walked in, dropped truth, and walked out strong. Viewers exploded with praise, calling it the best episode ever. Not because of the drama, but because someone finally spoke up. Sunny's credibility took a direct hit. You can't shout about truth while dodging your own. Her meltdown wasn't just emotional, it was symbolic. The moment hypocrisy collapsed under truth. And Gutfeld? He proved that real power doesn't need shouting. Just one calm truth, and the meltdown takes care of itself.